So today is going to be a very quick video, but I had to record this as a milestone in my life and sort of just share my experience, because I know a lot of you guys are the same point in life. Like, some of you are younger, some of you are older, some of you have probably done this, some of you probably haven't, and I just wanted to come on here and share my experience. So today is the 7th of March and I have just been for my driving test at 2:05 in the afternoon. This has been my second attempt at a driving test. I did my theory test back in like April last year and I passed that first time. I actually, fun fact, got on the pass mark because the pass mark's really high. I think it's like 47 out of 50 you have to get to pass, and I got 47. So I passed my theory first time. That was fairly easy. The practical is where I was very, very nervous. I have had about 20 hours, maybe actually under 20 hours of professional lessons with my driving instructor. It was quite difficult to get lessons with her because she was more over a different side of Bristol and she was very, very busy, so it put me off a little bit trying to always, you know, fit in with her, and then my days off I'd have to have a driving lesson. It just wasn't like very, very fun. But a lot of you guys know, if you watched my 19th birthday haul, that actually in May last year I got my car. So since I've had my car, it's now March obviously 2016, I have always wanted to drive. But then the whole process of having lessons, they're very expensive. They're like £25 an hour. You'd have an hour lesson, sometimes you have two and it's like £25 here, £50 there, like it's an expensive process, but you can't let it put you off because you do it once in your life and then you don't have to ever do it again. So I did about under 20 hours of professional lessons, but of course because I have my car, I was on the insurance policy where I was obviously a provisional driver and I could drive the car as long as I was with somebody who had been driving for over 3 years and was over the age of 21. So it was great because my boyfriend he fits that category, and of course my parents do as well, and my grandparents especially. My gramp used to be a truck driver for a career, so he was always on the roads. So I had then had, I can't tell you how many hours of like independent driving. I would say it has to be also maybe under 30 hours. Yeah, probably under 30 hours. So I haven't had like a whole ton. I've done driving in the past, but I just did about under 20 hours of professional and about under 30 hours of independent. And then I went and sat my test exactly a month ago today, so on the 7th of February. And I went on that test, and I've actually got the little sheet here, and it's a I think it's 37 to 45 minute test depending on where you go. My specific driving place is in Bristol. It's in more of a central location. I think there's about 4 or 5 in Bristol driving centres, and I went to the one that's more central, the closest to me. I always recommend you do that because obviously when I practice drive, I drive around my roads. I booked it in like October of 2015 and I only got it in February 7th 2016, so it was a long waiting process. And I went in, I was so determined. I cannot tell you guys how stressed I was doing my first test. I was so stressed. I serial watched videos on YouTube of how to do roundabouts, how to do reverse parking, how to do this, how to do that, how to change a lane, how to be like appropriate with your horn signs, just everything that I might need to know. I was in like this zone, which I don't ever want to go back in that zone because it was concentrated to the max. I get terrible migraines, etc. Sorry, I'm rambling on. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I was so determined. I was like, the day I woke up, my test was at 11:40, my first test I did in February, and I woke up and I thought, right, I think I've picked a good time because it's not lunch hour, it's before lunch hour, and the roads should be quiet. The roads were fairly quiet. I think it was a good time. I went to the driving school and the centre with my grandparents that took me, and we sat in the waiting room. And it was the worst 10 minutes of my life because you're just sitting there and there's like obviously all the other students with their instructors or parents or people who they're with, and everyone is completely shitting themselves. I just remember sitting in this room and I just couldn't keep still. My hands were like this. I do not work well under pressure at all. I can be amazing at something like my makeup examinations. I can be amazing. I know I'm good at makeup, but when it comes to being under examination, I crumble like a cookie. I'm terrible. But anyway, I tried to hold it together. I was like doing my little breathing and everything, and the examiners start coming out of the rooms, and there was like this nice like sort of jumpy blonde lady who was like, right, have we got, I don't know, James here, have we got James? And like people coming out, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe it won't be that bad. But then this guy comes out, and I don't want to judge, but if you could picture how it sort of a driving examiner would look like, he was a little bit of an older guy. He was quite blank. Like, I felt like he was very good at hiding, you know, if he was happy or sad. He was quite blank. He was a nice guy though, and obviously I won't mention names, but he was a really nice guy, and to be fair, I felt like he was completely fair. But obviously, me assuming the worst of situations, he looked blank, and I thought, oh my gosh, he probably doesn't like young drivers or whatever. Just coming to all these silly conclusions in my head. It's all my little paranoia that was going on before my test. So anyway, we go out, and of course they get you to do the eyesight test, which is just basically reading a number plate. It's very, very simple and easy. And then they'll get you to do a show me and a tell me question, which is very simple ones like how would you sound the horn, how would you check the engine coolant level, how would you check the windscreen wipers can work, or show me how they would work, how would you check the indicators are working. I studied them. There's 19 set questions, and you get asked one show me and one tell me, and I studied them to a T. I learned every single one and the exact answer to them. They're really simple. Like, first of all, when I was learning them, I overthought them far too much, but they're very simple. So we went there, and I can't remember, my first one I think was show me how you would clean the windscreen, and it's very simple in your car. In my car you just press the button and it does it all for you, and I'm like, you would just press this button and it would clear it. And then the tell me question was how would you check the tire depth, and what is the appropriate and safe tread depth it should be. And obviously on all cars it's 1.6, and you would check it with a tire depth gauge, and then you would also say it would be in the inner thirds of the wheel, and you check all around the wheel. You check all 5 wheels, so 4 wheels on the floor and 1 in the boot. You don't have to do that, you just say. And then we went out on our test, and I basically, in the test center, when you come out, you can go one way, which I'm very familiar with, I live in this area, or you can go another way, which I'm not very familiar with. We went out of the test center and we went that way, and I was like, oh dear. But nevertheless, keeping a positive mind, thinking, right, you can, whatever comes ahead, you know how to drive, you can do this. I thought the test was going pretty well. There was a few minor things that like just jumped out at me, like I didn't signal in good time. Like we got to a roundabout and he's like turn left, and I realised I'm in the left lane but I'm not signalling, so I can signal. It's just a minor here and there, but I got, I think, what did I get? This is my first test sheet. I'm just gonna cover it. This is what the examiner's sheet looks like. So you've got all these little sections here. You've got eyesight, controlled stop, reverse left, vehicle, precautions, control, signals, response signals, everything. You got it all, and basically they mark you, and you either get marked by having a serious, a minor, or a dangerous. If you get a serious, you fail. If you get 1 serious, you fail. If you get a dangerous, you also fail, but they also might abandon the test and say, we need to stop this test now, and I will continue to drive. And the driving instructor, if he feels it's dangerous to drive, if you're a dangerous driver, they will drive you back to the test center. And of course, minors are minors. You can get up to, I think it was 15, but double check this if you're learning. Double check. I think it's 15, 14, or 16. I can't remember which one it is. As long as they're not, like, I think it's 3 or 4 of the same. So like if you can see, in my first one, over here, this is not what failed me, but in my first one, I got junctions, the approach speed, he gave me 3 minors. If I got 1 more minor, I'm pretty sure that would have turned into a serious, and that would have been a fail. However, on my first test here, I got 8 minors and 1 serious, unfortunately, and I failed, of course, because it was the serious. And it was at a roundabout, which roundabouts hate me and I hate them, and it was going straight across, and basically it was just my positioning. I was going straight across, so you want to stay to the left, and I was too much to the right, and a van behind me had to slow down. So that is what I failed on my first test. So it wasn't like a complete disaster. I didn't know how to drive, like it was major faults. It was one unfortunate mistake that really made me fail. And I remember coming back to the test center, and he, like I said, he was a very blank person, so I didn't know if I'd failed or if I'd passed. Like at that moment in time when I did the serious fault, I didn't even realize I'd done it. I thought I'd driven fairly well. There was a couple of times I thought I got a serious, and they apparently were just minors. So if you go for your driving test, do not let what's in your head distract you, because I was convinced I was failed twice. And it was actually the one I didn't pick up on that failed me. So basically I came back to the test center. Obviously we parked up, and he was like, did his little sheet, and he was like, right, Aimee, I'm afraid to tell you on this occasion that you have failed. And I just remember sitting there, my whole body just did that, because the whole like previous like 3 days I was like this. My body was so tense, I was so concentrated, I was so focused, I had the worst headaches because I was so focused on it. And then when he told me that I'd failed, my whole body just went like that, because I felt like all of this that I'd been working for had gone out the window, and it was the worst feeling. I felt so bad. I remember he told me what my faults were, and then he told me about that and said, that's why you failed. And then I got out of the car and my grandparents had waited in the centre for me, and they came out and they went like, how did you do? From a distance they were like, and I just stood there and I shook my head and I broke out in tears. It was such a difficult situation. You cannot let you put this off though, because I'm sitting here as somebody who has passed now. I went straight home and I immediately rebooked. Like literally as soon as I got home, I rebooked the test, and it was rebooked for 20th of April. I didn't care, that was the closest date, it was a good time, and I did it. Anyway, I did a few more lessons. Since my last test, I've been out driving 3 times for about an hour each time, because I knew where I'd went wrong. Obviously, you all work to your own pace. If you feel like you need a lot more lessons, you go and have a lot more lessons. My parents were convinced, they were like, you need to go and get professional lessons. And I was like, no, because I know where I went wrong, and obviously I have my car and I know where I want to practice. So I went out every time, and I said when I was driving with Andy, my boyfriend, and when I was driving with my Gramp, I was like, all right, I want to do going right at roundabouts. I need to go right at roundabouts, and you need to watch me at junctions slowing down. Like, I just took this sheet and I just read where I'd gone wrong, and I had to do it all again. And when I went out to practice, I did right roundabouts like 10 times every hour we went out. I was like finding right roundabouts all the time. So basically all I'm saying is when you failed, make sure you keep your sheet, and I'm not going to say don't get disheartened, because I was so miserable. I was so upset. Like, it was one of the worst feelings ever, but you have got to believe in yourself and imagine you can do it. And I'll say the build up, especially the first time, I don't know many people who have passed the first time. You just don't know what to expect. You're so nervous, and even if you're so good at something, you will probably crumble under pressure. But like I said, it's really different. Sometimes it takes people past the first time with like no minors. I don't know how you do that, but that's with no minors, and sometimes it'll take you a few times. The fact of the matter is that you guys are watching this video either because you obviously are interested in my videos, or you are going to take your tests soon or in the future. And my biggest piece of advice to you is don't overthink it. Watch videos on YouTube. Familiarize yourself, go out by yourself, not just with a driving instructor. Decide what you do not like. Like when I first started, I thought I didn't like hill starts. I'm absolutely brilliant at them now, not a problem. But I know that turning right at roundabouts, I hate doing. But I said, right, I need to do it. You need to just knock them head on and master it. And then what I was saying was, obviously my test was supposed to be on the 20th of April. And I, for some reason, was laying in bed one night. It was about like 11 going on 12 o'clock, midnight. And I just thought, oh yeah, I better check how you can check for cancellations. And so I just Googled like UK driving test cancellations, and it popped up with the website. And lo and behold, I found today, the 7th of March at 2:05. And immediately I changed it, and I was so happy, and that meant I only had about 2 weeks to go. And yeah, today I had my test, and I can say that I was much calmer today. So much calmer. I was still, last night I woke up about 3 times. I was not in a good place. I was shaking in bed, like just waiting the day before. And then this morning I was like, I did my makeup and everything, so I was like, I need to be distracted. I watched YouTube videos of just beauty videos to try and get my mind off of it, because if you think about it too much, you'll convince yourself you can't do it. It's a human reaction. You don't want to be disappointed, so you think the worst, and you get prepared for the worst. But then I read up on these like sort of theories of how to have good luck and everything, and it is about visualizing you passing and visualizing what you want to do. And I visualized it more. I felt a lot more calmer. I felt like, come on, you've done this once, you know why you failed, you've practiced what you failed on, there's no reason you shouldn't pass today. So we went to the test centre, and I kind of didn't want to have the same driving examiner, because I just obviously felt like I seen this woman come up before and she was really bubbly and jumpy. Obviously that was just me judging off by like a 10-second like reaction to them. But there was about, 5 different students in the test centre, and then the examiners come out and I get the same examiner. And I thought, oh dear, he might remember me, I I'm sure these people are very professional, but at the same time, I didn't know. I think maybe, you know, if they judge you in like the first time and think, wow, okay, she can't drive. It's down to their discrepancy basically when they pass you. So he came out and he said, Aimee, and I was like, I looked at my grandparents, they looked at me and they were like that, and I was like, but I thought, no, come on. He's probably a fair man. He is a fair man. If you do a good drive, you know, if you've got no reason to have a fail, there's no reason he should give you a fail. Picked myself back up again. I was sitting down, and in that room again, I was looking at the floor thinking, please don't let me ever see this room again. And so he called my name, we got up, I signed my little piece of paper. So basically they get you to sign this little corner bit up here, which basically just says the use of the test vehicle, sorry, I declare that the use of the test vehicles for purposes of the test is fully covered by a valid policy of insurance, which satisfies the requirements of the legal relevant legislation, and I normally live/have lived in the UK for at least 185 days in the last 12 months. And you just sign that before the test, and they look at your little provisional license. And then you go outside, and he got me to read the number plate again. That was fine. And then he asked me the show me, tell me questions, which I was all very confident on again. He said, how would you check the brake lights? And he said, show me how you check the brake lights. And I said, well, we have two ways of doing it. Either if you'd like to help me, I can put the brakes on and you can get out and have a look and tell me if it's there. Or I can alternatively reverse up to a white coloured wall or a light coloured wall and apply the brakes and try and look for the red light in the back. And I said, would you be willing to get out? And he said, well, I would, but I won't. It's fine, don't worry. And I was like, oh, okay, phew. So I felt a little bit more like unpressured then, because I felt like he was like, yeah, come on, okay, I know you know your stuff, but I won't do it. So immediately felt good. Tell me question was, how would you check the tire pressure and where would you find the tire pressure amounts? And I know that, of course, I said to him, well, in my car, because every car is different, you can find it either in the car manual, or alternatively, if you want to look down to your left at the side, if you open the door of the seat, we also have a little chart there. And he went like that, like, really? And he opened the door and he checked and he went, oh yeah, we do. And I think that he was a bit doubtful of me then, but I felt a bit, I was happy, like, yeah, come on, I know my stuff, I know my car, I know what I'm doing. And then we set off, and I just genuinely, my whole body felt a lot more relaxed. I felt like the first test I was just like that, because you can't help it, you really friggin' can't. The second one I was much more relaxed, thinking, come on, you know how to drive. I went out driving an hour before my lesson as well, for a full hour. It's like, come on, you know how to drive, just, you know, chauffeur driving experience is just what kept playing in my mind. Like, imagine the Queen is in the back of this car. And I drove very cautiously, and I ended up with 6 minors, and that was a pass. And the only minors I got was when I did my reverse parking. I just didn't check to this side too much, but I did my reverse park fine. I changed direction, that was a minor. With my use of mirrors, I didn't use my mirrors to change direction. My signals, I didn't time one properly. I got 2 minors at from my junctions of the observation. And that was it. Oh no, sorry, positioning, lane discipline, and I know exactly when all these points were. So apart from that was fine. Another thing I will mention as well is on your test, I'm sure you all who are about to take your test would know this, but the new law in place since the beginning of this year is that at a UK driving test we only do 1 manoeuvre now. Last year it was 2, this year it is 1. My first test that I failed, I did reverse round a corner and I did it fine. I was like that close to the curb and I did it perfectly fine. It was fine, it was a strong point of mine. And then this second test, it was an easier one in my opinion, because we came back to this test centre. We didn't even stop outside. Like, usually you go to a residential area and do a reverse around the corner or a turn in the road or, you know, a parallel park. But we went back to the test centre and he just said, can you reverse into one of the bays? And it was all empty bays, so I had all the space. I didn't have to worry about cars or anything. And I did it, and I was slightly at an angle, but as long as you're in the box they don't really care. That obviously you perfect it after you've passed. But he just did give me a minor for the little bit of observation in there. But that's it. So I can officially sit here as a woman who has passed her driving test. I am covering up the details just because obviously it's not something I want to share too much, but I can sit here as someone who has passed their driving test, who, you know what, I can't even believe it. I nearly cried when he told me. We came back and because he was so blank as well. I didn't know. I just sat there, I looked up at the sky, I was like holding my little cross necklace, and I was just thinking, like, he was doing his little marking papers, and I was like, do you know what, it could go one of either way and you've got to be prepared for both of them. and I was almost holding my breath, and then he just turned to me like this and he was like, right, Aimee, I'm happy to tell you that you've passed. And I was like, what? I thought I'd failed, because when he did that, he turned to me and was like, right, Aimee. And when you do that, you think that someone's, you know, body language suggests that somebody's getting ready for disappointment. And I was there like, oh my God, no. And then he said, you've passed. And I literally went, I had my eyes closed and I was like, I passed. And he was like, and I was like, thank you. I was like that because this weight just fell off of my shoulders. I can't even tell you how good it is. So anyway, I passed my driving test. I wanted to share my experience with you guys. I'm very head up right now. I'm sorry if this has been all over the place and long and fast and whatever, but I just, like, not even an hour ago passed it, and I am so happy. I am so proud of myself, and I just can't get in my head that I can drive now, like, whenever I want, wherever I want, on my own, with someone. I can't get it in my head. My car is outside, it's got MOT'd, it's, you know, taxed and everything. It's so perfect, and everything is perfect, and I want you guys to take from this what you will. Never, ever, ever be disheartened with it. I have a friend who has told me about a friend that is, you know, she's on like her 5th or 6th test and she still hasn't passed, and it's all because of silly little serious faults. So whatever that serious fault is, like mine was a roundabout, you have to just take from it and serial practice it, because yeah. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you're about to take your test, good luck, so much good luck, and remember to all stay beautiful, and I will see you in my next video. Ciao!